Hey everybody, and welcome back to our research class. Good morning, researchers. I wanted to very quickly kind of go over the final research paper in our class. It's actually a research proposal, which probably none of you have done before because this is research methods. So I wanted to touch base with you on this in case you haven't checked the rubric. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is check out the research proposal section, and you can find a couple of things here. I was gonna recommend starting with the paper example, but honestly, I guess it doesn't matter too much. In case you're not sure what a research proposal entails, essentially what I want you to do is to come up with a project or an experiment that you could ostensibly do in the future. And it's up to you, if you want to make it realistic, you can. If you just want to kind of do pie in the sky, idealistic, if money were no object kind of experiments, that's okay too. But basically, you're going to create an experiment that will test a hypothesis of something that you care about, something that you are interested in, and it could be pretty much anything. So let's say that you're interested in developmental psychology. You could look at the effects of screen time on sleep. Do kids that spend a lot of time on screens during the day, do they have issues sleeping? So that is something that you could do. So let's just take that example. If you were to make that into a hypothesis, you would turn that into a testable statement. And usually that's going to be an if-then statement, as we talked about at the beginning of the semester. So it could be something like, if children are exposed to lots of screen time, then they will have poor sleep at night. That's all. That's the hypothesis. Now it's up to you, your ingenuity, your imagination, your research, in the literature to find what do you think is the best way to test that. So then in a method section of your research proposal, you might talk a little bit about, we're going to have two groups. One group of kids where you are going to make sure that they get 4 hours of screen time every day. And then a second group of kids that basically are going to spend a week without any kind of screens. No iPads, no phones, whatever. No computers. And then you're going to measure their sleep. How are you going to measure their sleep? I don't know. It's up to you. You can ask the parents. You could ask the children to take a self-report thing. Or, because this could be pie in the sky and it could be whatever you want it to be, you could even say that you're going to have those kids stay at the lab for a week and you're going to hook them up to an EKG and measure their vitals while they are sleeping. So that way you're able to get a very accurate representation of how long they're sleeping, and also, what's their breathing rates like, what is their, what's their pulse like at night, all of these things. So that's the method section, where you're going to kind of walk through how would you test this. I feel like that's probably the most straightforward section as well. I'm also expecting two other sections, an intro and then kind of a final section where you're kind of explaining what you are predicting. So the introduction is going to look exactly like all the other research articles that we've read this semester. Basically, I'm just looking for, here is the problem. So here is the research question. And here is some relevant research that's already been done in this field. And maybe, you're using Google Scholar, you're using the PSYC database to find good scholarly articles that are peer-reviewed for that. So maybe you find where they did the exact same experiment with adults, for example. Or maybe they did a very similar experiment, but it was in the 1990s, and so they didn't have iPads and stuff like that. Those would all be relevant to your project, so you can write about those in your introduction. You can say, here's what these folks found, here's why it's important, here's what it means. The last part of your paper, of your proposal, is going to be a section talking about what you think your results are going to be. So keeping this idea of, like screen time and sleep, here you could say, I think, I predict that whenever we have kids look at a lot of screens, that's going to have a negative correlation with their sleep and their restfulness. And here's why. And then you can point back to the literature that you found up in your introduction to show, like, here's why we expect this, because we know all these other things about behavior. And that's pretty much it. So I don't know, for some of you that may sound easy, for some of you that may sound challenging. But what I want to emphasize is that you do not need to collect data on this. This is not like you will collect data on this. This is just a proposal. This is what you would theoretically want to do. So you don't need to collect data. The second thing that I think is important is be sure to use peer-reviewed resources. I can't tell you how many times people will find like Psychology Today or Get Well Health or like any of these other kinds of secondary sources you can find online, which can usually be pretty good. You find something on SciPost or Psychology Today or any of these really big psychology websites, and those can point you in the right direction. But if you find any sources there, check out what they are citing. Go to the original source. That is what you want to cite here. Yeah, so basically use this rubric as kind of like a guideline. I'm not requiring it that it be perfectly an APA, but I'm wanting you to take a stab at it, because pretty much from here on out, in a lot of your other psychology classes, you're going to be expected to write in APA format. You've been reading articles in APA format all semester, so I'm not going to be a huge stickler for APA format, but I am expecting you to at least try. And if you're not familiar with APA and you're getting worried, you can check out this link, which takes you to a website that has pretty much every question you might have about APA. It is cited somewhere here. It gives you an example of what a paper would look like, where things would go. It's very, very detailed. If you want to know, how could I possibly cite a podcast? Well, there's a way to cite that, or a piece of YouTube video, or if you want to cite, I don't know, a book or a magazine or any other kind of print resource, like a dictionary, for example. There's all different ways to cite that. The other thing that I'll mention, in case it is helpful, is if you go back to the project proposal, if you click on the final paper example, you will get a previous, somebody submitted this last semester. Basically, their project was looking at the effects of depression on memory, and they were hypothesizing, if I remember correctly, that people that do have depression are going to have deficits in a specific kind of memory, and that people who don't are not going to have that. So in this paper, you can see, and I even kept the comments that I gave this person when I was grading it, so you can see the areas I thought this could be improved, but you can also see the areas that I liked and talked a little bit about. So this wasn't a 100 out of 100 paper. This was a paper that I thought was really good, but also had some area for improvement, and you can see where I pointed at those areas could be improved. Here in this person's results section, their hypothesized results, they even included hypothetical figures. So they even said, this is what we think the data will look like, which is usually very persuasive for people to make those. All right, so that is pretty much it. This was, this is like an 8-page paper, not including the references, which are 2 pages, and the introduction page, which is 1 page. So it's actually like a 5-page paper, double-spaced, which sounds like a lot. But once you start working on that method section, you're going to realize very quickly that a lot of that stuff is going to come very quickly for you. But don't put it off, because I don't want you to stress out about this too much. And I even allocated some time in the semester to work specifically on this proposal, which you can see right here. The last week of class, we're not covering any new content, any new material. I just want you to be working on that proposal. If you have any questions in the meantime, though, you ever want some feedback, or especially if you're brainstorming ideas and you can't think of what you would possibly be interested in, then let me know. I'd be very happy to kick around some ideas with you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, good luck on that paper. I love reading these because I love seeing what y'all are interested in and what appeals to you and why you think it's interesting, and how you might go about researching it, because you very well may be in a position to research those things on your own next year whenever you're taking research methods too. Very, very exciting. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. I will catch you later. Bye-bye.